Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm here with Alisdair Straughan from Paladin Marketing. How are you doing, Alistair?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, really good.
Thanks very much for joining us. If you could start us off, as always, and give us a bit more background as to who you are, what it is you do, how long you've been doing it for, please, Alistair.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So my name's Alisdair Straughan, and like you said, I'm the owner and MD of Paladin Marketing. We're fairly young in agency terms. We're about 6 years old. Set up a very interesting time. It was kind of 2020, which was
Yeah.
pandemic. But it was, we've had a really good journey up to now. So like I said, we are young in terms of agency terms. We've got kind of lots of kind of really interesting clients. We kind of grew rapidly in the early stages. We're predominantly a digital marketing agency. About 90% of what we do is digital, but we do some other things. We do kind of bits of sports marketing and that sports activation as well, which is
Nice.
slightly outside of kind of the digital sphere. Although we do apply a bit of a digital lens to that,
Yeah.
and perhaps we talk a little bit about that. But we've got clients all over the place. We deal with clients who are in sectors from kind of automotive to home furnishings to senior living to food brands. So all sorts of different kind of
Brilliant.
varied and interesting clients.
So how did you get into that then? If it's 6 years to this point, what were you doing before and what was the inspiration for the transition?
Yeah, so my background is, my background is actually sports marketing. That's where I started my career. I started my career at Huddersfield Town Football Club. Was there for a number of years, 7 years, and left as head of communications. That was around 2010. Ended up in the Middle East. Had a great time there. Was there for about 5 years, working in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha, and it was a fantastic experience. Not least because of the clients that we're working with. I got an opportunity to work with Emirates Airline, McLaren Automotive, and
Mhm.
for the Abu Dhabi government, and all sorts of different really interesting things. And
Yeah.
because the money is not really not there's no object really when it comes to investment in kind of marketing and kind of big PR activation. The
Yeah.
opportunity to do some really big and interesting and exciting projects was there. So I was very lucky really to be involved in that. Came back, I think it was about 2015 that I came back and ended up working at an agency in Leeds. Was there for four years and just decided that I had a great time at the agency, great people,
Mhm.
um, but just thought now was the time to go and strike out on my own. It was just
Yeah.
something, just I think it was something that I was always going to do, and it just felt like the right time. Little did I know that the pandemic was around the corner.
Yeah.
But it did work in my favor actually to some degree. I mean, initially I set up as a consultant, and
Mhm.
that's what I was going to do because my background, like I said, was sports marketing and PR. But at the agency in Leeds, I ended up becoming more of a kind of a brand strategist. So I was kind of in
Yeah.
charge of their core product, which was almost like the diagnosis process of getting in front of understanding what a client needed and things like that. And
Sure.
it was something that I'd never done before, but it turned out I was really good at it. And it was about understanding what the client needed and then prescribing a strategy as a result of that. And I thought, actually, this is something I could potentially do on my own. And that was really the journey kind of that I went on. And at the end, and I set Paladin up in May 2020, but really didn't become an agency until about 2021 because I spent the first kind of year
Sure.
and a bit as a consultant.
Brilliant. And so what in terms of why people come to you guys at Paladin, what's the reasons for that? Kind of values based or differentials from other people?
Mm. This is a really interesting one because I think so we're not a channel focused agency. So we're not an SEO agency. We're not a brand agency per se. We're kind of an integrated digital marketing agency. So we do lots of different things. So we don't kind of specialize in a specific type of marketing. So understanding what kind of your USP is and what you bring to the market, that's it's not easy to, I guess, define that. Because what most marketing agencies do is, they will look at marketing best practice and actually the principles of marketing and then execute those as they see fit. But I think what makes us different is the approach in our approach to the application of those marketing principles. And by that I mean, so if you're a brand and you want people to buy more from you,
Yeah.
then our processes within that perception of what of your brand, there is something that's stopping them buying from you, or else they'll be buying from you all the time, or and not buying from your competitors. So
Yeah.
within that perception of your brand, there's a barrier. Our diagnosis process and approach is to find out what that barrier is and then overcome that barrier. So that's how we approach it. I know a lot of agencies will talk about strategy and and this is how we approach things. We've got a multi-channel strategy and but we start with, okay, well, what's the reason for the strategy? What question are we trying to answer? What barrier are we trying to overcome? How do we close that gap between the audience's perception and that purchase? So all our diagnosis process, which is called the edge, which that's our kind of proprietary kind of process, is all geared up to understand what that question is, to figure it out. And there's a lot of audience research that goes into that, working with the client, doing our own kind of research that goes into understanding that client as specifically as we possibly can. Because and then what we do is we actually map it onto various different kind of emotional models. So Maslow being one of them. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is because the how you change people's perception is it's an emotional change. That's what you've got to do. It's an emotionally driven decision, generally speaking, whether that's kind of a self-actualization or whatever it is, wherever it is on that hierarchy. That's what we try and do. And then the clever bit really is understanding what that is and then developing the strategy as a result of that. We're completely agnostic when it comes to what channel that might be. So we're not, like I said, we're not there to sell PPC or SEO,
Yeah.
because that's what we do. It's okay, well, how do we best change the minds and reach the audience where they are based on the solution and the opportunity that we've identified as part of that diagnosis process.
Great stuff. And does that come from your experience in terms of you taking all that you've learned in your career to date to, I suppose, develop that through the agency?
I think so. I think yes, it is. I mean, the diagnosis process is I think it's fairly well trodden in terms of agency terms. I think a lot of agencies will do some type of discovery. I mean, you have to really, don't you,
Yeah.
to understand what the client is and what they're all about, the audience, competitors, and the market, all that stuff. But I think it's the rigor and the emotional aspect twist really that we put on that, because that's what we found delivers the best results in terms of kind of me and my application of that and why I kind of landed on that for Paladin. I think it's because one thing that I think is probably the most important thing for any leader, really, in any business, and certainly with what we do, is emotional intelligence. I think it's understanding emotionally what triggers people, what moves people to not just
Hmm.
buy things, but to make any decision within their life.
Yeah.
And we've had some real success. And I think the results of the application or the process itself is borne out in some of the successes that we have. I mean, I talked about kind of senior living and because of that's such an emotional process, because some people don't even know that they need to move into a kind of a care home or a retirement village or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And there's sometimes a refusal to believe that that's what they need to do. And so it's I guess it's meeting the objections and those barriers and then talking to people in a way that actually like I said, overcomes those objections and barriers to enable to move them on the journey. But
Yeah.
particularly with that example, you've got to be super sensitive. It's got to be done in the right way. But
Yeah.
we've applied that same thing right from senior living right through to a food brand that we work with.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's transferable across virtually any sector and any brand and business.
And what has your business journey been like to date through developing all that? Excuse me. In terms of you started 6 years ago, just start of the pandemic, you turned into an agency 2021 to where you are now. If there's one word that you could describe it, perhaps, and then expand on that.
To describe the journey.
Yeah, so far to date.
I mean,
As a business owner, an agency owner, what's it been like for you?
gosh, so it's a really good question. It's been. I mean, I consider myself to be. I'd say fun, really, but I consider myself to be kind of fortunate, really, that I'm in this position. I don't- we've actually had a really good time. we are young in agency terms, and we've grown successfully year on year. 2025 was probably the only year where we didn't grow as quickly as perhaps we projected, and I think the economic environment has played a lot in that, and I think we'll probably continue to do so for a period. I speak to a lot of agency owners, and there's quite a few that are not having a great time of it at the moment, and I think that's fairly prevalent across a lot of industries and a lot of clients that we speak to as well. So I consider myself to be really, really fortunate that we've grown as we have. Um, so yeah, I think to sum it up in one word. I think yeah, I mean I've enjoyed it, but I guess growth is easy in the short term. In the early days, it's really
Yeah,
easy, to if when you're small, we've gone from one to two people, we've grown by 100%.
yeah,
It's really easy. It's really easy
yeah.
to have those
And
big
have
numbers.
that fun and be on that journey. Yeah, that's it. I mean, in terms of other agency owners, having spoken to a couple recently, and that reflection there of perhaps the last year or two being different from the previous years. Yeah, there's definitely a pattern there in the industry. And at the same time, kind of there's a phrase like "what you've got you here won't get you there" kind of
Yeah,
thing, which is again very
definitely.
common with certain business owners. It's kind of
Mm,
like, okay, we're at this point. How do we get to the next point? Which the fun and the challenge always comes into it
yeah.
of asking those questions, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been. I think one of the biggest changes, certainly for me as a business owner and leader, is the change in role and the change in the types of things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Because I became a marketer because I enjoy
Yeah,
marketing, and I would say less than 10% of my time at the moment is and it'll probably decrease over time, is spent
yeah, yeah,
actually doing any type of marketing. And it's not that I don't enjoy the bits that I'm doing, but you've almost got to retool.
yeah,
You completely
yeah,
you become, the person that I am now is completely different to the person that I was,
yeah,
5 years ago, in terms of things that you know and the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. And you do everything because of the size that we are. We're not a particularly big agency. We're still looking after, keeping our eye on obviously all the invoicing, HR, kind of the motivation of the team, and
sure.
all of those things that have got really not a lot to do with marketing, and more just to do with running a successful business.
Yeah, and a team there. So in terms of your challenges and opportunities that you can see into the future as far as you can with the state of affairs, not that anyone really can predict exactly what's going to go on, but for you guys, what do you see as the challenge, and then flip side of that, the opportunities?
Yeah. So I think you've probably asked this question to a few people and got the same answer, and so obviously artificial intelligence is a big one
Yeah,
in our industry, and most industries really. It's hard to see one that isn't going to be affected by it. I mean, I think the interesting thing about AI is that it's kind of leveled the playing field a lot, and it's really good at outputting vast amounts of um, content and ideas and all of those things that kind of are the backbone really of what marketing is. But when you drill into it, it's pretty poor. There's a lot of it outputs a lot of rubbish. And this kind of proliferation and you'll see it all the time. You see it on kind of LinkedIn, and you see it when people email you and all sorts of different stuff. And I think that not only are humans kind of hardwired to spot this, I think people are actively looking out for it now. So I think whilst um, the AI has kind of, like I said, leveled the playing field a little bit, I think it does bring some challenges with it. I think an over reliance on it will be an issue for certain people. I also think there's probably some opportunities around that, because you can output large amounts of or large volumes of work in a fairly short space of time. Um, the manual oversight of that is really, really crucial. But I think what it means is that I think it there's probably more benefits to smaller independent agencies that can compete in terms of volume with a larger agencies than they ever could before. For
Yeah,
example, we use AI for content writing and all sorts of different stuff and things like that. Whereas before we'd have had to, employ three or four different people to be able to output the amount of
sure.
stuff that we do. So I think that, there's I guess both opportunity and a bit of apprehension, I guess, with that. So yeah, I think obviously artificial intelligence is one. I think also as well the economic climate. I think there's just huge questions
Mhm.
over that. It just seems to be one knock after another. I think economically, in the UK
Yeah.
from obviously the latest incidents in Iran and the Middle East, to all sorts of different things that affect us. So
Headwinds, shall we say? Was
yeah,
probably the way.
exactly that.
Thank you very much for sharing that. There's some real good sort of points made on. And in terms of just to go back on the AI question when I was listening to you there, came out, and is it a balance then, that word balance between you have AI helping you write the content, but there's a human element to, I suppose, like anything. If you prior to AI, you have someone producing the content, and then someone look at it and like an editor or and say, okay, that's a good framework or a good basis, but we need to
Mm,
humanize it. And
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it's funny because one of my favorite sayings has always been, I mean, since I was in like writing press releases when I was doing PR, it's much easier to mark somebody else's work.
yeah,
So when I was teaching people how to write press releases and write stories for the media and things, um, they'd write it and then I'd get it and I'd red pen it and I said, don't worry about it. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
if it comes back and there's loads of it, don't worry about it because it's much easier for me to mark your work than it is to actually write the press release, develop
get
the
to
idea.
start and get something going.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's what AI is really good at. It's really good at breaking the back of that initial thing. So it saves you a lot of time to do that.
yeah,
But I think, like I said, it all comes back to kind of human emotion and human intelligence. Is that it, it AI content lacks that because obviously it doesn't understand it. So
yeah,
that's what needs to be injected into it. That's the bit that's missing. And so even though it can output reams and reams of copy, the for somebody probably not even with a trained eye anymore for the reasons I've discussed, it's fairly transparent that it's just being outputted by AI
yeah,
and it lacks depth and emotion and therefore resonance and effect
yeah,
as
yeah.
a result of that.
That makes total sense. It's got to have feeling behind it. So
Yeah,
even if you have AI to help you, you've got to have felt those feelings that it helps you to put into context. There's no feeling because that's where the gap is. They'll never ever have that, and that's what So people are there's some scare stories about what it's going to do, but ultimately because of it's built by humans, but it's a technological thing. It won't ever have that kind of element of human nature behind it or feeling, as you say, resonance. So
yeah,
um, it's one way to counter the fear, I guess, with people who who think it might do something that it may
yeah.
never be able to do. Um, so that could be another topic of conversation for a whole new podcast, I think. So we'll kind of park it for there. So again, thanks for sharing that. In terms of your biggest lesson, Alistair, for the years that you've been in business or even over your career, what would you say that is for you?
I think this is probably a fairly well trodden answer as well. Is one thing that it took me a long time to do and to be able to be comfortable with is working on the business and not in it.
Yeah,
I think because it was such a diversion from what I was used to doing and comfortable doing. Like I said, I had to retool and be able to, and it took me not a while, but it it wasn't as it was a bit more of a difficult more of a difficult journey than I expected it to be to understand that actually I can't be a marketer anymore. I've got that because that's not my job anymore. My job is
yeah,
to run a
yeah.
business, and I think that was the biggest kind of change.
Mhm.
And I know it's a bit of a trope, really, that don't you need to be working on it and not in it, and but it's absolutely true. I think as well, not taking anything for granted. I think, I've been in so many meetings, so many pictures, so many things that oh yeah, that you're having a little discussion that went really well, and we
Yeah.
think we think we're going to get that, and then something, and then nothing happens, or and it's not happened to us, but I'm really aware of the fact that you don't take any of your clients for granted. All it takes is, some kind of headwinds to say for them to say, well, actually, we don't want to do that anymore, or something. You just don't ever assume that what you've got is gonna what's gonna stay.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things, and I think one of the other things was what as well, which again I've always been quite good at is um. It, is make yourself available for
Mhm.
opportunity. So say yes to stuff
Yeah.
as often as you can. Go to that conference, go to that meeting, go for that
Yeah.
coffee. Go to that networking, answer that email. All don't just ignore it. Just get on and do stuff. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is that the more that you do, the more comes your way. I mean, people talk about making your own luck, and I think,
Yeah.
there is, I guess it's another way of saying that, just making sure that you're actively available for opportunity.
Brilliant. Like those shares. Thank you for those lessons. Well trodden path of many business owner, I think, in terms of setting out with I suppose, the technician of I do the marketing, or I'm a baker, or whatever it may be. And I set up a bakery, but soon enough it becomes apparent about running a business is quite different from the doing of the doing, so to speak. And yeah, working on the business is really valuable. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of your inspiration, then to keep on going to work and turning more and more into a business owner, and as the fruits of your labor, so to speak, what inspires you to keep doing it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got into marketing, or I think I persisted with marketing, as a career. I was going to say that's why I got into marketing. I mean, the truth is I got into marketing because I got a job at Huddersfield Town, and
Yeah.
they asked me to write match reports for a football team and travel the country doing that. So that was why I got into it, because that was that was a bit of a dream job at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think the reason why I'm still in it is because I think it speaks to the core of what I enjoy, and that is, to all intents and purposes, creative problem solving. So, a client will come and they'll say, "This is what we want to achieve. Here's our objective over the next 3 to 5 years, or we want to launch this product or
Yeah,
whatever it is, and we need a hand doing that." And the solution always has to be creative. I mean, I do loads of crosswords, loads of quizzes, and I just love doing that. Um, and there's the kind of the speaking to a client, and I've written loads of kind of copy for clients, and kind of being able to articulate their business better than they can. There's this kind of moment of kind of clarity for them,
yeah,
and kind of seeing all of that, and then putting the strategy into action, and then getting the results at the end of it is all that bit's really, really, really great. But to be honest, it's the journey to getting there that I enjoy. The
yeah,
result bits at the end of it are kind of validation of the strategy and everything that you've put into it. But it's that journey. It's being able to
yeah,
develop that. Okay, well, how do we solve this problem, guys? Like, let's get in a room. Let's think about it all. Let's use our creative brains to find the best way to be able to help this company. And that's the bit that kind of that's the bit that inspires
nice.
me every day, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's like life. You've got to enjoy the process, because an end goal is an end goal, and then it ends, and what next? So it's all about, yeah, that process and enjoying the kind of things that you do day to day, or yeah, taking ideas and putting them into the real world, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
making them happen. Very satisfying. So, in terms of any advice then to anybody starting out the industry, or say if we reflected you at 18, and if with all that you know now in hindsight, what's one piece of advice you could offer?
Yeah. I'd probably say, I mean, advice would be kind of be clear about who you are, A, as a person, but B, as a business,
Mhm.
and understand those. I think the opportunity to start the barrier to entry from a marketing company to start a marketing company is really low. I mean, I say this all the time to the staff and to the clients that we meet that um, you could go onto YouTube, watch a social media marketing video, and set yourself up as a social media marketing agency. I'm kind of fairly old, really, in marketing terms. I'm coming up to 50, and I've got some senior people within the team, and that experience is really valuable to me, to the business, and to our clients. So I think being really, really clear about kind of who you are, what you're good at as a person, then translate that into the business and then figure out what it is that you can do for people that nobody else can do, who you want to do that for, and then
Yeah,
why you want to do that.
nice.
Those three things, and I think as well, just be humble and enjoy it and enjoy it. I mean, I think it's that's really important because you can come in and it's quite stressful. There's quite a lot of pressure to to deliver quite rightly as there should be. We get paid money to do that, and it's sometimes you just need to come in and just actually, we're doing really well, and actually this is really enjoyable,
Yeah,
and I think you forget to do that sometimes.
yeah,
It's
yeah. Especially with all the
so.
pressures, as you say. Yeah.
Mm,
That's a brilliant share. Thank you. It's almost purpose driven in terms of just those. I think it was three things about who you are, who you're doing it for, and why you're doing it. Kind of very focused on that kind of purpose. But if you can connect with those things, then and have fun along the way, kind of remember underneath it that it can be enjoyable, that it is enjoyable, and that's some great advice. Thank you. So lastly, in terms of latest news about what you guys are up to, or even if people want to get in touch and understand more about what you do, feel free to share that now.
yeah. So I mean, in terms of, if people want to get in touch, so we run this edge process that I've talked about. This is our diagnostic process. As part of that, we do audits. So, and if anyone wants to get in touch, and we can run a free audit for people. No, you kind of no strings attached.
Sure.
If people want to understand a little bit more about kind of their digital marketing landscape, one of the things that we do offer is absolute clarity. It's this is what's happening, and this is what you need to do about it, and they can go away and do with that what they want. If they want us to help implement some of the results of that audit, then absolutely fine. And they can get in contact with me Al at paladinmarketing.co.uk.
Brilliant. I'll make sure that we share the contact details when we share the video as well. Alistair, thank you so much for sharing all that you have. Been a real pleasure talking with you, and I wish you all the best for the future success of the business.
Thank you, Mike.